This track, called Dom Dom, named from the onomatopoeia of the bass line in the piece, is a completely vocalized piece which I recorded and mastered on Logic Pro X. This commentary will be in a timeline fashion, with reference to the 6 elements of music throughout the video. Throughout my years of musical development, vocalization such as beatboxing and a cappella has always been features of me as a musician, which was discovered during my participation in numerous choirs. My goal in the previous assessment type 1 and 2 was to collect information in Japanese jazz fusion. My vision for assessment type 3 is to create a vocal piece to incorporate all that I've learned. I produced this piece at home using a microphone and headset in my recording setup. I first notate ideas, melodies, and harmonies down in my program, and then record them. While working on the piece, my teacher suggested to keep certain elements raw to showcase the accuracy of my recording, such as the following harmony. Other elements are mixed and mastered to achieve the desired timbre of the represented instrument. Some passages have fast movement, which I had to record in slower tempo and then speed it up in the mixing. The concept for the piece is to start off with a traditional swing jazz groove and then transition into jazz funk in strong semiquavers. I got the idea from T-Square's history, which starts with classical strings and then goes into rock. I beatboxed a double-timed swing hi-hat rhythm and a walking bass line in the key of E minor, which I have listened to many similar walking bass lines. This is similar to the party music in the musical Legally Blonde, which I was a part of in our school production of it. I took inspiration from its light feel, then added gentle hi-hat plus ride hits, as well as octave jumps in the bass line. Mapping out the following section A, I lent inspiration from T-Square's Midnight Circle to create the drum rhythm and bass line while carrying on the octave jumps in the bass line. With the elevated energy level in funk, brass synth is a good choice to cut through the rhythm section, like the one in Cassiopeia's Galactic Funk. This is used to accompany the pops in the bass line. I made my voice twangy in the higher register, imitating the trumpet synth. Then I added a drum solo. The first half is in double time, having tom hits on the offbeat, achieving a swing syncopation. The idea comes from Beloit Memorial High School's performance of Duke Ellington's Coco, which I studied in Stage 1 music. The second half returns to normal time, with funky snare hits on the swing offbeats. After the drum solo, motive A comes in. It repeats 4 times and has the following chord progression. It is similar to Duke Ellington's Coco, but I also added a chromatic chord descent near the end of the progression, creating tension and release in the harmony. I then wrote out the motive melody, an alto saxophone solo, and a keyboard solo, then allocated the 4 repetitions as following. The main melody is played at the start and end. First time the guitar solos, second time all leads play in unison, and the secondary lead instruments improvise in between. I wrote the motive melody as if I'm singing over the chord progression, and then vocalized it as guitar to add articulations, using E minor blues scale. In the sax solo and piano solo, I used improvisation techniques of these instruments that I've learned in previous explorations. The bass line is inspired by Lee Ritenour's Condor. It is slapped and popped, a technique which I orally enjoy. It has a slower pace than in the intro, so that the focus is on the lead instrument solos. Then, I wrote and recorded a scat accompaniment, similar to Cassiopeia's Night Breeze, filling the gaps in between phrases of the guitar and sax solo. I used chordal notes of the chord progression and scattered with a smooth and airy approach, adding a mellow tone in the mid-register. After 4 rounds of Section A allocation, I wanted to add a transition to Section B, where the bass and the drum plays off. This chromatically descending progression was inspired by T-Square's Midsummer Side, which I used to set up a modulation, where I then followed up with a 2-5-1 progression at the end of the transition to approach E-flat minor. The bass and drum play-off was inspired by Cassiopeia's Galactic Funk. The solo stays on one chord, E-flat minor, and the 2 instruments alternated every 2 bars. I used repetitions in the bass solo, which was inspired by a fellow Year 12 solo style in guitar that I transferred to this bass solo. The second half of the play-off solo modulates back to E minor. This elevated the energy level, and also brought it home, as E minor is the original key of the piece. The accompanying instrument, brass synth, keyboard, joined back in the second half, playing long notes of chord extensions on top of the bass solo. This created contrast in texture between the first and second half of Section B. I also embedded polyrhythms in the drum solo, inspired by Wycliffe Gordon's bebop arrangement of Swing That Music. The playoff is followed by another Section A allocation, laid out as following, where the guitar improvises for 2 rounds and the motive repeats twice. The guitar solo uses a combination of long notes and semi-demiquavers. I incorporated minor blues scale and Dorian mode in the solo, emulated guitar techniques such as bends and split-tone distortions in the long notes, and lent inspiration from Thunderstruck to write the faster and lighter shreds. Then, the motive melody reprises. In the first time, all lead instruments play in unison, identical to the one before Section B. In the second time, the guitar plays the melody, while the sax and keyboard improvise and fill the gaps of each other's phrasing, creating a staggering effect. The coda goes back to double-time swing jazz, and it is identical to the first part of the intro. I wanted the ending to resonate the beginning, as if they are book covers of the track. Then, in the last 2 bars, every instrument comes in. The mellow key and trumpet synth play chordal notes of E9-4, while the other instruments improvises over the chord. There is a crescendo through the 2 bars, creating a dramatic effect. This is inspired by Cassiopeia vs T-Square live performance of Fight Man, which they played a big ending, and I wanted to recreate it in my piece. In summary, Dom Dom is an excellent example of Japanese jazz fusion. I laid foundation for the piece with a binary form, simple harmonies, and syncopated rhythms. I wrote melodies and improvisations typical to the genre, as I have explored, transcribed, and notated many in my previous assessment type 1 and 2. Timbre was the strongest element in the piece, as I emulated instruments typical to the genre, using accurate vocalization and effective mixing, which then enabled me to create logical variations in texture. Looking back at the year, the most significant thing I learned from music explorations is to take inspiration from a wide range of music and use them.